So we don't have Sister Lorraine online. We're working on that. But I'll go straight to Jacqui, and she can present on the work of Equal Playing Field and what they're doing.
Thank you, Angelyn. Excuse me. We'll start off with watching two videos, and these videos capture, firstly, one of our volunteers, who's a male, captures his journey as a young person who comes into our Changemakers Academy, and the things that he learns, and how ultimately he sees how some of the skills that he's gained has helped him in the long run, not just with his work at school, but also personally as a young man. We'll also look at another video of another young man, but this time this young man is in a primary school. There will also be other young people, a teacher as well, who will share his experience working with the organization, but also attributing how some of the programs that have been delivered have helped them and have helped their teachers as well, and even their students as well. So we'll have these videos played, and then afterwards I'll emphasize a bit more on some of the principles that we as an organization see why it's important in engaging men and boys in our programs. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Abednego. Currently, it will be my second year volunteering with Equal Playing Field. Well, volunteering with the Equal Playing Field, for me, is very important because some of the things that they have in the toolkit that I impart to the children are not learned in the classroom and are not learned at home as well. So the kids get the opportunity to learn this stuff in our shared talk. So now I'll introduce you guys. The favorite part of doing voluntary with Equal Playing Field is the 8-week shed talk, where we actually learn different types of topics, like rules of the game, miles in the shoes, and styles of communication, and the games. The kids definitely have fun, and they enjoy themselves, as well as practicing what they have learned. Being a team leader, some activities that I do or take lead during debrief, brief everyone on how the day is gonna go, and ensure that we have enough voluntary to facilitate during the games. The reason why I chose Equal Playing Field as an English student, it gave me that avenue to actually do practical English during shared talk, as well as building myself up in terms of public communication, public speaking, presentations, and I really wanted to use that to advocate. So I saw that they gave me that space to actually use my skills to impart to others. And while imparting to others, I'm also building myself. So for myself, I come from a single parent family where I have only my mom to support. So we might have bad relationship like drinking maybe, that broken marriages. So basically bad relationship can cause violence. So that's the drive behind me joining Equal Playing Field. So if I can advocate to others that there are support services, support network, you have all this there, despite whatever homes that the children come from, when they see me smiling, they feel happy and see me as their role model. and they smile too.
Oh yeah, my face. Oh, that. I got beaten up this morning, but I'm good though.
My name is Mr. Mero. I am the focal point teacher of Coronation Primary School. Comparing students who are in the Equal Playing Field School Action Group, I've found that some of them have become outspoken and they have been running programs about gender-based violence, equality, and across the country. If these programs are run in every single school, it will change the whole student population, whole country.
I got involved in SAG last year because of my big sister. She was in SAG. She's really rough. But when SAG came in, things started changing. She was confident, talked to people she doesn't really talk to, she give advice. I saw it, that's a really big change, and I asked her, why are you doing this? And then she said, oh no, it's because I joined a group at school, SAG group. I said, okay, can I please join too? I was actually scared at first. I'm not really confident in front of people. Equal playing field make us come out of our shells and we're confident, and now we're trying to pass the message on to them.
My name's Blessed, and I'm a grade 8 student here at the Coronation Primary School. This morning, I was walking to school and I got beaten up by some school kids and some outsiders also. They got my bag and lunch money and everything. But I would say it's normal for me because I'm part of the SAG, so what I do is like I think positive, and then when I move on from that. When they do that, I don't report, but I go to them like personally and I talk to them and sort things out.
So my name is Aiga. I work with Equal Playing Field. Equal Playing Field works with school action group students here at Coronation Primary School. So today we're having a talent show / showcase day for Coronation Primary School.
The song we sang, the title is Moving On. I composed the song. To me, the song is all about change.
It empowers children and encourages them that no matter what, they have to move on and go forward with their life and make PNG a successful and growing country.
The message of the song is, where would they be in the society when they grow older?
That song was for us, but we have to move on. It's like we're encouraging other SAGs to come in, other students. Grade 7, they're going to take our place.
It is a good thing to see the students perform as a school action group because they all are not in the same class, but with the interaction they have, they are all as one as a school action group.
The song is going to be used by Equal Playing Field as an official song, which will be left by the current SAGs.
Should have a PowerPoint come on. PowerPoint. Thank you. Those two videos were just hopefully to give every one of us just a picture of what it feels like to be working out at the schools and working with especially young men and young men at uni or even in the primary schools or even in the community or part of institutions. So this, during my talk here, I'll just give some key points on some of the key things that throughout our programs they address in terms of engaging boys and young men. So firstly, one of the key things that comes out is that we have a focus on behaviors and not gender. Kind of the abusive behaviors we see are not just behavior limited to men only, but we see it across society or across the community. So in ways, we're saying that we do not say that these are unhealthy behavior when men do it, but we say that this is an unhealthy behavior in general. Violent and abusive behavior in all its form is found in both males and females. I kind of same dal person we look ilo man mi plak and look ilo married to. I kind of suppose marry and fight him man too can fight him married to. So we see those behavior across both genders, and so we say that if we do not acknowledge that these behaviors exist in both men and women, then we're not being genuine. So we need to be genuine by saying that these behaviors we see across both men and women. And oftentimes when we are not being genuine, that means that it's harder for us to get through to those who really need our help. The second point is acknowledgement without shame, and that's in terms of the fact that unfortunately when we are trying to deal with eliminating violence against women and children, it usually demonizes our men and boys in terms of the fact that they are perpetrators. And so in our view that if we put them in that light, that's not helpful, because at the end, like, they need help. And so we must remember that men and boys in PNG have been exposed to unhealthy and violent practices and norms. And if they're not experiencing in their homes or in their families, they're definitely experiencing it in their communities as well. So we have a focus on building visions of healthy relationships, and we try to display that through special volunteers below UMI, or if we're working with teachers, we work with them to role model this behavior to the younger audience. The next point is win-win focus, where everyone wins when we have healthy relationships. So in a way, we say that our position is that healthier relationships are win-win for everybody, for both men and women. And so we say that the perceived loss of not being the boss in a relationship is offset by the value of an equal, loving, and healthy relationship at the end of the day. So in the end, it's not about you're the boss in the relationship. No, it's about how do you have an equal and loving relationship, one that's healthy. And we also look at the fact that it's not about giving power and being some sort of a hero, but it's actually about creating a world where everyone is happy in their relationships, be it family, be it with an intimate partner as well. Just getting more into our programs, in the next slide, you will see in more detail some of the programs we have and where it focuses on men and boys. So within our Equal Playing Field for Schools program, our 8-week program, the key component that it includes is that it includes sports. Why? Because when we look at men and boys, on average, obviously men biologically have higher levels of aggression, high testosterone. So when we utilize sports and movement, it makes even more sense. And so it provides a fun way to practice healthy relationships and concepts that you'll see that if they try to learn that on their own, it's a lot more challenging. So when learning and practicing, like in a traditional setting, such as an educational setting, it's a lot more effective for these young men to learn and practice them at the same time. Through our Changemakers Academy, we help to train role models. So every young man that comes into this program, they are trained to be a role model for the younger audience that they are working with, or a role model in their home or in their community. A challenge for a lot of men and boys is that they do not have good role models to look up to. They do not have good role models where they see somebody that they look up to who has a healthy relationship. And so if we all know how negative gender norms, that it's it's hard for them to step away from something that they get so used to seeing. If young men grow up in a home where there's a lot of abusive things that happen, then they just get used to that. And so for us, we try to role model or nurture an environment where they see the healthier side of what a relationship should look like. And so in our facilitators, we see that in terms of the kind of content that we deliver, they are all to role model what it means to have a healthy relationship. More so as well, we also try to ensure that we provide strong female role models for our girls as well, so they can see that girls can also be role models as well. I think in the next slide, we will look at the next bit of programs. Okay, I think it's still coming up in the next slide. So in the next slide, you will see our university, yes, and school action groups. So you'll see the video, the second video had Blessed, who is a school action group focal point. And it's really important that while we are teaching healthy forms of relationship, we need to build a network of these passionate young men and women. So the school action groups is all about that. Like, you're creating this new culture in an institution where that's the norm, that's the new norm, or that's the new culture. And so for these action groups, either it be levels in schools, in the teachers' college institutions, or even in the universities, it's like you're building like a network of young people who share the same passion, who also share the same kind of concepts about what it means to have a healthy relationship. In our teachers' training, especially when we deliver to teachers' colleges and schools, we are working at, like, it's a system-level approach where we look at how ideals or even laws in the country and how we try to integrate that into the policy of the school and the institution, so that in a way we are nurturing the environment, but also policy-wise too, it's creating an environment for us to be those positive role models. Lastly, which is our Generation Found, this is a program that we delivered when we were in Bougainville, and this has a big focus on involving post-conflict youth and how they can work on themselves, and at the same time bringing both men and women together to work together, and that they need each other to build their community and to identify through personal and community development. This is something that's been very life-changing for a lot of young people, because when they see the value of both men and women, and when they come together, when they're working together, the younger generation is actually seeing them that they're working together. And so you'll see that the role of men is really critical in a situation like this, where they see men taking the lead and to help build their community and their society. I think on the last slide, just to summarize. And this is the one where, as an organization, this is where we have the most influence, and that is the people that work for Equal Playing Field. Like, I keep emphasizing to my staff that if we go and we teach this content to our young men and to our boys, and we ourselves, we're not doing these things, then there is no meaning. There's no meaning at all to the things that we do. And so organizationally, we represent this ethos, which is ultimately creating a workforce of people that work together, they communicate with each other, and really it matches the things we are delivering, the other things we are actually doing. And so we've had a lot of experiences where, of course, we have our young men facing issues, challenges in their home. And when we hear about those issues, it could be easier for me to just say, take them out of the program, and we don't want to have anything to do with them. But I'm always accountable to these young men when they are part of us. What responsibility can we take to help these young men? Because why should I just offload this to somebody else when, as an organization, we have an influence to build this young man up? And I think for us as an organization, this is how we keep ourselves accountable to the programs we deliver to our community. If we don't do these things ourselves, then there's no meaning when we are trying to go and do them. Thank you. That summarizes my points on how, as an organization, we include men and boys within our programs.
Thank you so much, Jacqui. I think one thing we've learned is that, sport can be a tool that you can use for effective behavior change, and working with students as a group can also change families. Like we just saw the story of this young girl where she saw her sister being very confident, and then she wanted to be part of that group as well. So it changes not within school, but also families, and then it goes to our communities. Thank you so much for your presentation. While we wait for the Nazareth Center for Rehabilitation to be online, I'm going to hand over to Marcia Kalinoe for her presentation.
Thank you. I'm just going to talk briefly on male advocacy and the work that the Family and Sexual Violence Action Committee of the CIMC is doing. And I will just talk briefly on our male advocacy resource guide that's currently being worked on. As we're talking about male advocacy for women's human rights and gender equality is the focus of my talk this afternoon. And it has come about as a result of the advocacy work of a lot of frontline women's movement on ending violence against women. And it's based on the experiences of women, where we've recognized over time that efforts to address violence against women cannot be done by women alone, but there's men and women that have worked tirelessly to address this issue and continue to do so. And so the material that we have developed specifically is equipped for community advocates in PNG to effectively work for and with women to advance goals of gender equality and addressing family and sexual violence prevention and response programs and community initiatives. So the work that we have been doing over time is a result of the women's movement, especially in the Pacific, and the recognition that we have a common issue of addressing violence against women globally, but we also have to look at the local context on how we can be working to address this. And women in the Pacific have realized that we have to work alongside men if we would like to see change, and we would like to address this issue together and see change happening in families. So we've put together a male advocacy resource guide, and it basically looks at how we can advocate and support better. And it's not only a material for men alone, or advocates that are in the community, but it's also for women as well, and for everyone generally. We get asked this question, like, how is it different from programs that you may be that may already be around and that's happening? And so we say that it's the difference with the material that we have. It's basically founded upon human rights framework, and it takes into consideration the importance of women's voices and listening to women in the conversation of addressing violence against women. Some of the key principles of this work: women and men are equal. Basically, that's a premise that, because a lot of times it's inequality that contributes to a lot of bias, a lot of discriminatory attitude and violence that occurs. So it's based on a key principle that women and men are equal, and it supports women's human rights and gender equality. And it's through this understanding of women's rights that we recognize that there is a power imbalance that we would look at addressing. It also acknowledges that women's rights and values and their struggles that they have been going through to advocate for equal rights and a life free from violence. So that the focus on a life free from violence, which a lot of us do not really look at closely and value that women as human beings have a right to be free from violence, all forms of violence. It works with accountability to women's groups, meaning that men working in isolation to address violence against women, it cannot be, if you cannot understand the pain of a woman, you cannot speak for a woman. So basically it's saying that accountability to the women's movement is important, men working with women. And it encourages women to participate at all levels. It also, in terms of inequality, a lot of times we fail to recognize that inequality can be viewed as an individual, where a woman does not feel that she's equal to being in a same room with a man or to being in the same place as a man. So it's addressing that individual thinking around inequality, the family as well in terms of inequality, and even in the community, addressing that. So basically, it's saying that we have to address it from that perspective, that inequality does exist, and what are we doing to help women to overcome this, women and young girls. Support women access justice. I think that's another principle that we come from, that we have to complement women's programs and strategies, and that access to justice is a right for women who are facing violence. And that we recognize that all men and women benefit when there is equal power relations. That's an area that we also focus on, that it's beneficial to both men and women when there is an equal power relationship. And that when we focus on inequality, most times it's men who benefit from an unequal power relations. I think that's probably where I can just speak on, but in terms of the rollout of the program, this is what the material currently looks like. I'll just hold it up. So this is what it currently looks like, and it's actually taken from resource material that has been developed in the Pacific through the Fiji Women's Crisis Center, which a lot of us have contributed to a lot of work done in the Pacific. And we've tried our best to contextualize to the PNG context, taking into consideration some of the issues that we have and how best we can support our community advocates, not only men, but women as well, to advocate better and to have a clear understanding. It's also based on a key principle that male advocacy is not a standalone program. It is very much part of the wider strategy of addressing violence against women, and it's also in the GBV strategy for Papua New Guinea 2015 to 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia, for your presentation. Because we are short on time, we're going to go straight over to Bougainville, and we have Sister Lorraine from the Nazareth Center for Rehabilitation with her presentation. Apologies, we're just trying to make some connections. And we have Sister Lorraine here. Sister Lorraine, you want to start with your presentation?
Where's the camera? Hello. Hello.
Hello, Sister Lorraine. Have you through?
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, hello. We can hear
You
you.
can hear me from there?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. And we are really privileged to be here today or this week for this online annual reflection, as it is not easy between Bougainville and Port Moresby because of the network. But we are very happy that we can participate. And this afternoon we would like to share the work that we do with men and boys in preventing gender-based violence through the unlearning of dysfunctional behavior and relearning better ways of respectful relationships. While the unequal power relations between men and women, boys and girls exist, in the work that we do, what we see and have identified as what influences that basically is the learning gender process. How men and boys and even women and girls learn gender. And the work of reintegrating the gendering process has to be reintegrated somehow at every level of the gendering process, whether it is in the home with parents and their children, extended family members, schools, within our churches. Our cultural society contributes a lot to the gender process. Therefore, changing systems that contribute to the behavior that is being learned has to begin at the base level. Parents and their style of how they enable their children to learn gender relations and roles at an early age. The extended family, aunties and uncles, even grandmothers, also contribute to child rearing. All of this has to be a positive approach to growing up and building gender equality at an early age. Addressing gender-based violence at the level of schools allows for us to work with children in growing positive behavior. And the biggest challenge amongst children is peer pressure and peer influence. By working with children in the school-based program enables children to grow understanding of what it means to learn and engage in positive behavior. So, working with gender-based violence or family and sexual violence brings home to us the point that we need to restructure in our society, in our cultural society, that restructure the gendering process and how gender roles are learned. Because we see that these unequal power relations between men and women, or boys and girls, has a bad impact, negative impact on the lives of women and girls. So that's what I would like to share this afternoon. And I have my colleagues here. If they have to say something, they will say it. Thank you very much for listening to me this afternoon.
Thank you, Sister Lorraine. Do your colleagues have anything to share?
Okay, afternoon, everybody.
Afternoon, Alphonse.
Okay, working with men and young boys in addressing the gender-based violence, we have these spaces. At the men's hub, we engage with men and boys during the counseling session. And also at the community training workshops, we engage with men and boys, young boys, in terms of behavior change learning. And also the counseling sessions at the community and men's hub. That's where we meet with the men and boys. And 16 days activism, awareness raising. That's where we meet with men and young boys. And annual men's forums at men and boys. And also at the community level, at the men's association levels, we invite us to raise awarenesses concerning gender-based violence. And at the individual men and young boys contact points every day, that's where we engage with men and boys. And off-school youth engagement sessions of behavior change and families, communities, and warring parties, dialogue and mediation processes. That's another space where we meet with the men and young boys. And family, clan, and individual conversation sessions at the communities. And also the referral pathways from the safe houses to the men's hub, police, community counselors, educational institutions, and parents of the children, and any other concerned persons in the community who bring their children. And during the election period, we do advocate for the women, for the taking that position at the leadership level. And any other developmental and economical matters, meetings, and we try to raise the points of gender equality. Thank you for listening. These are the engagement spaces.
Thank you so much, Alphonse. So we're going to move straight to our questions and answers. And I have a question for Marcia. And so someone's asked, where can they get the toolbook?
Thank you. So the material is quite new, and we will be launching it this year, before the end of the year. We have done a couple of consultations, 2 consultations last year for the first time. We brought it to our network partners, those who have been advocating in this space, and we listened to their feedback, and we've finalized it, and it will be given to, especially to our Women Human Rights Defenders Network organizations. And if you would like to know more about this material, you can contact us at our office. And you can also reach out to various organizations that are doing tremendous work in this space, a lot of women's human rights defender organizations that can also link you up with programs that they already have and ways that they are addressing this issue. But that's basically, it's a really great question. It's basically, I would say we're charting another way forward in terms of how best we can work together, men and women, in addressing the issue of violence against women. And this is a credit to our network partners who have put a lot of effort and sharing the ideas on what else we can do to support and work in addressing the issue of ending violence against women and girls, and how best we can work with our male counterparts who are very much interested in addressing this issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marcia. This question goes to both Equal Playing Field and Nazareth Center for Rehabilitation. We've got a question that's asked, is there a challenge when the program's new gender behavior norms messages are contrary to those that the children see at home or in their communities? And how do you address those challenges through your activities? We'll throw it to Sister Lorraine and the Nazareth Center for Rehabilitation to respond to the question, and we'll come to Jacqui here.
Thank you very much. How do we deal with the challenges around that? I think in the beginning when we started doing our work in 2015, 16, we had a lot of challenges. But because we work with women human rights defenders and male advocates who are in the community, and most of these people, they have to undergo the learning, attend the learning pathway that Nazareth Center provides. And by attending the learning pathway, they are able to learn about violence against women, the gender processing, all those things they have to learn about it. And because they learn about that, during the type of awarenesses or the spaces that we engaged in that my colleague Alphonse was talking about, they are able to present that information to the people. And in the beginning, it was challenging. They didn't accept that information, but nowadays we can see the work that we have been doing. People are beginning to understand it. Recently, I worked with a group of men, and we were doing the learning on the gender processing and all that. And the men, they said to me, in a very nice way, they said, "Excuse us, sister, we understand very well what you are telling us. And we know that we contribute to violence against women in a big way. But what we also would like you to do is when you are working with women, to also help women analyze their contribution to the gendering process, especially in our cultural society or at family level or extended family level and clan level, and talk to the aunties and the grandmothers, because most times they are the ones promoting that sort of behavior where men are not allowed to do laundry or cook food or whatever. So they were actually telling me in a very nice way. They didn't even like have an argument with me as they would do in the past. They just said it in a very nice way. And that when I heard that, I understood, and then I knew that already these men, they have been learning things and they are beginning to change, and they understand also where change can take place, in what space. So that's what I would like to say in relation to that. Maybe my other colleagues, they might have something to say later or now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Lorraine. Jacqui.
Thank you. And there's definitely those differences that exist. Like, say, for example, suppose me walk one time or Pikinilo school, it's disrespectful for you to call people names, but then when they go home and the mom is calling the father names, or let's say the kids at school learn that, it's not good for you to, throw an object to somebody else, but then when they're in the classroom, the teacher decides to get the chalk and throw it over to a child. And so there's definitely those dynamics that exist from children learning one thing, but then when they get into the home circle, they're experiencing the exact opposite to what they know is the right thing. For us, when we also started, similar to Sister Lorraine, we also had very similar challenges. And I cannot say that we're 100% across all of them because I'd be lying. But one of the key things that we learned because of instances like this was that we needed to have a whole of school approach. And in a whole of school approach was that it's not enough to just deliver respectful relationship education, but it needs to come with a whole of school approach in the sense that the school teachers need a code of conduct that supports respectful relationship learning. The school needs to have a child protection policy so that the policy guides the role of teachers or the role of the school, role of the teachers in the school. We also have components like parental engagements where parents need to be put through programs like positive parenting so that they understand how to raise their kids. So in a way, the kind of education we deliver shouldn't be a standalone, but it needs to be accompanied by other programs that helps to support what children are learning. So I think for us was graduating from delivering respectful relationship education into setting up our Safe Schools framework, or we call SSF. And through SSF, we are now developing Safe Schools committees in schools, and these Safe School committee members become the leaders in driving a child protection policy, in handling disciplinary issues, because sometimes disciplinary issues are actually closely related to child protection issues, and oftentimes, the issues are handled as if the child is knowingly and willingly doing these things when in actual fact they're actually going through abuse at home, and that's why they're acting the way they are. And so for us, those challenges have somewhat informed us to understand that we need a whole of school approach so that there are other things that can come into the mix of respectful relationship education that could help support a child so that they learn in a friendly and a safe environment.
Thank you so much, Jacqui. And just to reiterate, what I get from Sister Lorraine and Jacqui is that, the gender roles and equalities are also embedded in both men and women, and that we all need to rethink what we are saying to our children, our behaviors, what we are teaching our children. I've got a question online. Sister Lorraine, it seems that you're very popular. The question they have is, I think Nazareth Center for Rehabilitation has a men's hub. The question is, what kind of help you plus are offering to men in the men's hub?
Okay, I can answer this question, and then my colleague Alphonse, or another one at my back, who they work at the men's hub, they can also speak about what they do in their experience. But the idea of the men's hub came about, for Nazareth Center, it came about because we felt that men also needed their space where they could go for counseling, for example, or go for the kind of help that they need. Because Nazareth Center, we have two pathways for unlearning behavior. One is the learning process, which is the learning that we have, the different types of trainings that we run, and that is also one learning pathway in helping to change behavior or to help people rethink the way they behave or they deal with each other, or the kind of relationship, different kinds of relationship they need to build with each other. So that's one way. The other way is the first individual, personal way, and it for men and women coming for counseling. So the men's hub was established as a counseling service and unlearning service for men. So that's the kind of work we do with men. And most of the men that come to the hub, that register at the hub, they also participate in like gender human rights training or family and sexual violence training to help them have that understanding of what is violence or what is human rights, all those things, what is women's human rights, so that they can have a broader understanding of that and what is violence and how they can deal with their own violent behavior. So those are the kinds of services that we provide for the men at the Nazareth Center. And we have two hubs. One hub is in North Bougainville in Chabai, where Nazareth Center's headquarters is, and the other hub is located in Central Bougainville. But those people who cannot reach the hub, we also provide counseling at the community level, where we have men and women who are women human rights defenders, so male advocates, who are also trained as counselors. And they can do basic counseling in the at the community level.
Thank you so much, Sister Lorraine. Looks like it's a really important work and a safe space for men to unlearn negative behaviors as well as learn new behaviors with their families and in the community. I've got a question, and I think I'm going to throw it to Marcia. Why is it really important to work with men in working for gender equality? And I think that some may criticize, for example, there's a lot of gender equality issues in PNG. Maybe we could focus more on the girls and girls in school, or maybe do work for, women as women human rights defenders. Why focus on men? And I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Thank you. Another great question, an important question, and why we need to focus on working with both men and women. As I mentioned in my talk, a lot of violence that occurs to women, experiences of violence that women have, is usually at the hands of men as perpetrators of violence. And but at the same time, in this country, we also recognize, as well as in the Pacific, that men and women need to work together. And this has come about from advocates on the ground, human rights defenders, who have been sharing their experiences of what they see is occurring. And we also would like to say that, we have men who are listening. We have men in leadership roles, key leadership roles in this country. And in order to get change to happen, we need to be able to have a conversation, respectful conversations on this issue, and how best we can all work together to address violence against women. And I guess that's the perspective that we come from, that we need to be able to work with men. And I know from a lot of experiences that with couples is that women and men in relationships, it's very hard for women to just give up on that relationship. So how best can they work together to improve? And we talked about unhealthy relationships and healthy relationships, and how best men and women can improve themselves, communicate better, and improve their situation for themselves and their families. I would also like to talk on the matter of empowerment. Yes, empowering girls is important, but we cannot forget that one day these young girls will want to get married. They will want to move on with their life. They need to be able to look at healthy relations in a positive way, form good relations, and the same with young men as well, boys and men as they're coming up. And I think Jacqui and Sister Lorraine have really given some insight into the programs that they run on the importance of young boys and young girls growing up together, the learning process for them, the gender process, on how best they can be able to form relationships and recognize from the beginning what is healthy and unhealthy, and be able to make informed choices that can hopefully have better outcomes for themselves in future. So it's more than just talking about violence, I guess. It's on a broader scale how we are empowering them and how we're helping a generation to overcome all this and for a better Papua New Guinea and a better future for families, for communities, and even for themselves as individuals. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marcia. I just want to summarize our presentations for today because we only have 2 minutes left. And what I can get from this is that for change to happen in our families, in our communities, the change will need to happen with your children. And one thing that the equal playing field and the different tools that are being used to contribute to the change. Using sports as a tool to talk about respectful relationship, working in schools with the Nazareth Center for Rehabilitation, and talking about the gender roles that are taught at home and what needs to be learned and unlearned as well. Having a safe space for men, such as the Men's Hub, to talk about gender equality and human rights and the negative gender norms that are there, and the good practices that the men can take away. At this time, I just want to say thank you to our panel, to our presenters. The Nazareth Center for Rehabilitation from Bougainville, thank you, Drew, for your presentation. Equal Playing Field, Jacqui and the team, and Marcia Kalinoe from the FSVAC team. Thank you so much.